Chapter 20, Winter of 1864-1865, Last Raid. December 30th, we broke camp, leaving our pleasant quarters near Winchester, and after a cold march of 3 days, reached Lovettsville in the Loudoun Valley, January 1st, 1865. This place is located a few miles southeast of Harper's Ferry and on the south side of the Potomac. Here we again constructed winter quarters, occupying them until February 24th, at which time we joined the balance of the division preparatory to starting on Sheridan's last great raid. Nothing of an unusual character transpired during our 52 days sojourn here. Of course, we had our share of rough weather picket and scouting duties to perform. During this interval, quite a number from the regiment visited home on furloughs, and part of the time our camp was made lively by the influx of northern ladies visiting husbands, sons, and friends. Many pleasant social gatherings were held in the officers' tents. Those religiously inclined will recall the interesting religious services held at the church in the village, in which Reverend A.J. Blanchard, now chaplain of our regimental association, bore a conspicuous part. In after years, the writer heard many expressions of gratitude from those benefited through the labors of this devoted man at that time. During the latter part of January, Hon. Henry S. Foote, ex-senator from Mississippi, after making his way through the Confederate lines, came to an outpost of the Dragoons and gave himself up. While awaiting permission to visit Washington, he was the guest of the regiment. Surgeon Neeland had many conversations with the distinguished visitor relative to public affairs. Mr. Foote expressed fears that the assassination of Lincoln would be attempted by misguided Southern zealots. How sadly were his forebodings realized. General Grant having planned an early campaign, the quietude of our pleasant camp life was rudely disturbed by orders which started us out upon Sheridan's last great raid, which resulted not only in clearing the Shenandoah Valley of the last remnant of organized Confederates, but inflicted great injury upon the Confederacy elsewhere. On the morning of February 24th, 1865, we very reluctantly left our comfortable winter homes at Lovettsville and joined the great raiding column concentrating at Winchester. Our force was composed of Custer's and Devon's divisions of cavalry and 2 sections of artillery, all told about 10,000 officers and men. General Devon having been placed in command of the 1st Division, Colonel Charles L. Fitzhugh was assigned to the 2nd Brigade, while Major Smith commanded the Dragoons. On account of inefficiency, Torbert was discarded and General Merritt was appointed Chief of Cavalry. Much of this chapter is from an article by Captain A.J. Leach. Contributions by S.S. Morris and others have also been drawn upon. On the 27th, we started up the Valley Pike towards Staunton, camping the first night near Woodstock, where our band favored the inhabitants with the last good Yankee music they were to hear. March 2nd, we reached Staunton and turning eastward encamped near Waynesboro, where Custer's division had just captured the remnant of Early's army, consisting of 1,600 officers and men. These were sent back under guard to Winchester. Crossing the Blue Ridge at Rockfish Gap, we pushed on to Charlottesville, with not much of incident except rain, mud, and march. Owing to the incessant rains and spring thaws, the roads were rendered almost impassable and were distressingly wearing on the poor horses as well as the men. In numerous instances, the strain on the horses' hoofs was so severe that they were torn off when coming in contact with the sticky clay and quicksand, necessitating the shooting of the animals. In such instances, the troopers were obliged to follow the column as best they could until another mount could be obtained by confiscation. While resting at Charlottesville, many of the regiment visited Monticello, the old home of Thomas Jefferson, also that famous institution of learning which he founded, the University of Virginia. We were now free from opposition in a rich portion of Virginia heretofore almost unvisited by Union troops, and containing abundant sustenance for the men and horses. Sheridan was thus enabled to send out detachments unmolested in all directions to destroy railroads, warehouses, canals, and whatever would cripple the Confederacy. Leaving Charlottesville on the 5th, we struck the James River Canal at Scottsville, thence proceeding to Howardsville. The next morning at 2 o'clock, we started out to capture the bridge over the James at Hardwicksville, 12 miles up the river. I was ordered with my squadron, companies K and B, to take the advance and at first sight of bridge to send back word, then charge with all speed possible. This we did at daybreak, but discovered huge volumes of smoke issuing from the other end. For some days the structure had been saturated with tar and turpentine and stuffed with straw, which was fired on our approach. A few shots were fired at us, and we could hear the derisive jeers of those on the other side. Our inability to save the bridge materially changed Sheridan's plans, but he expressed his satisfaction that we had made every effort possible to accomplish his purpose. We, however, destroyed valuable rebel supplies. At Newmarket, the river feeds the canal through bulkhead locks. These our regiment destroyed and turned the river into the canal, causing great destruction. About noon of the 8th, officers' call summoned us to brigade headquarters, where we were informed that an all-night secret march was before us. At 3 p.m., we started for Columbia, halted at 8 o'clock, and fed the horses, but no fires or coffee for the men. Resuming the dreary march, we kept it up all night in the furious rain and pitchy darkness, often floundering in the deep mud nearly to the horses' bodies. We were on hand at daylight, having marched 56 miles in 16 hours, and a more jaded, water-soaked, and mud-bespattered set of men and horses could not be found. Much of our night's march was through forest roads, and at least one half the men were bareheaded, their caps having been swept off by the branches or fallen off while the men slept on their horses. In another forced march, we reached Goochland Courthouse 20 miles farther down the river, playing havoc with locks, dams, boats, and everything of value to the enemy. Lieutenant Tatter, with 12 men, followed down the canal, capturing horses and destroying boats. They reported to General Sheridan with 200 colored boys and 55 prisoners. For this success, Tatter was awarded a gold medal. After another long march, the regiment rejoined the division on the road to Louisa Courthouse about midnight. Through all the country north of Richmond and the James, for the next 10 days, the cavalry roamed at will, continuing the work of destruction in all directions. Passing to the north of Richmond, Lee sent out cavalry and infantry to entrap us, but Sheridan shrewdly evaded them and with his entire command safely reached White House Landing on the 18th, says Sheridan. The hardships of this march far exceeded those of any previous campaigns by the cavalry. Almost incessant rains had drenched us for 16 days and nights, and the swollen streams and well-nigh bottomless roads presented grave difficulties on every hand. We should have been forced to abandon most of our wagons had it not been for the help given by the 2,000 Negroes who attached themselves to our column and literally lifted the wagons out of the mud. After drawing rations at White House, we crossed the peninsula, thence the James River at Deep Bottom, joining the Potomac Army near Petersburg on the 27th of March, 1865, and after a rest of less than 2 days, started out upon the Appomattox or final campaign, described in the following chapter.